Afternoon Talk on SAFM.
Right, so welcome back to the Afternoon Talk Show. We normally put somebody in the spotlight. Today we're going to do something rather different. So if the norm is to get somebody into studio, talk to them about themselves as per usual and get you to call in, well, it's going to be slightly different this time around because, in fact, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about two people in the spotlight who, well, they're not around. Doesn't mean we can't talk about them. We're talking about Adelaide Tambo and Adelaide Tambo, and that's relevant, of course, because of the walk that happens this weekend. And I hope you're going to get there. Very important one in the East Rand, in the Ekurhuleni region, that happens on Saturday, the 6th of October. 3 walks, 3 different categories, the 5, the 10, and the 21-kilometer categories is what that walk is all about. But we thought, you know what, the walk is one thing. Let's talk about the people. And because they've passed on and we can't talk to them, well, probably the best person to talk to us about putting them in the spotlight is someone who just happens to be related to them. And I'm talking about Adelaide Tambo. So, Adelaide, good afternoon. Hi.
How are you, Ashraf?
Yeah, it's a good time to talk to you because I think you know this. Your surname, I'm not talking of the first name, is a calling card to anywhere and everywhere, certainly in South Africa, if not around the world as well, isn't it?
I guess, yes.
When did you realize that? Meaning the power that the name had?
Well, I think these things develop with time. I mean, you have your innate power as you're alive because of what you do, as does Madiba today. And I suppose once he leaves us, it'll take on a different kind of presence, and we'll celebrate him in different ways. And that's been the case with OR, with my father, and with my mother, that, I noticed how they were loved when they were alive, and as people. And then when they passed, I noticed how people loved their values and what they stood for. And so it's that which really lives on now and which is part of the purpose of the walk.
How, and I'll certainly talk about the walk a little bit more in detail in just a second, but how, at what age did you realize, and I have to choose my words carefully, did you realize that in fact your parents were in fact special people? I'm not saying royalty, but they were special people. That means they were certainly not the average. They had unique...
You mean when did I realize?
Yes, at sort of what age? They had unique personalities, a unique mission in life, in the world. How young were you when you realized that?
I was quite young, but I don't know to what degree I realized they were special. I did realize they were special. I mean, in that I saw how people treated them. I saw how people treated my mother, normal English people as well as South Africans, but also how people treated my father. And, I have great memories of Taba and Becky's generation coming for meetings. People like Dr. Dadu and others come in for meetings, and we used to have a code because I would always serve tea. So if they asked me for a lemonade, I knew it was a gin and tonic or a vodka tonic. If they asked me for a ginger beer, I knew it was a whiskey soda, because officially they weren't supposed to drink in front of my father.
Oh, okay.
And so when the meeting dragged on for a long time, they would just wink at me, or they'd say, no, it's okay, we want Dali to serve us.
I can imagine, yeah.
But it wasn't just my parents. I found that as I got older, I realized that Uncle Joe was Joe Slovo and was famous, and Uncle so-and-so and Auntie so-and-so, and all of these people were quite legendary figures in our lives as South Africans, and not just my uncles and aunts.
And now that you reflect on having been associated with all these people, what does it do for you?
Well, I suppose there's a degree of guilt in some cases that I didn't go the political route. I planned to, and then I kind of, I suppose you could say, chickened out at the last minute. Yet I think that all of us as citizens can make a contribution to our country in different ways, and we can't all go into politics. And so, I think that the way to honor them and that generation is really dependent on how we live our lives today and what we do to continue the goals that they strived for, and to knit together a united nation that really does care for all its citizens and produces a compassionate society where there's a degree of egalitarianism and where people feel they have a stake in the society. That's what, their generation and the many that came before them fought for. Mm-hmm. And to instill in our future generations and in ourselves, I suppose, the values of integrity and honesty and service, and things that they stood for. And it's not easy because, we're in a different time and there are many temptations out there and things, and we're perhaps, in a fairly selfish society. We all have to look after number one and things, but I suppose it's really to try and live according to, to live in a way that honors their legacy.
Okay, let me invite callers as well. 0891 104207, 0891 104207. So here's your chance. You're chatting to Adelaide Tambo. What's the one thing you want to ask him about his parents? Because we're putting them, in fact, in the spotlight and using Adelaide to allow us, to help us put them in the spotlight. This, of course, all ahead of the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Liberation Run, take it whichever way you want to.
Yes,
which happens,
you can walk or run.
Yes, I got that. Which certainly happens at the weekend. I'll take your calls and SMSs 23471. If you want to tweet me, use the hashtag in the spotlight, but also, or even afternoon talk, but certainly tweet to me directly, Ashraf Garda1, and also you can comment on my Facebook page as well. You did say that your plan was to get into politics, right?
Yes, I studied politics, and I suppose I got enamored by culture and media, but yeah, I studied politics.
Okay, but it didn't happen, ultimately. The plan was you studied politics to plan to get into politics.
Yes.
But you didn't get... What happened to you?
Well, I suppose two things. One, my father became sick, and that changed a lot of my plans, in that I had to look after the family and I had to look after my mother. And that really required for me to be a breadwinner. And secondly, I had a long conversation with him where I said to him, it's that time in my life where I really have to make a choice. And I had been, in media and living in the United States when he had his stroke, and I'd left. I was really studying to be a movie director, and I had to leave that to come back and work, really. And I said to him, it's come to that time, and his firm conclusion was that, it's a calling, and because you're my son, it's not going to be easy, but you must just choose very, very carefully that it requires a high degree of sacrifice and all of this kind of thing. And basically, by the end of speaking to him and thinking about what the requirements of the family were, I just decided, I feel I should, one, leave your reputation clean, because you're a deep intellectual and I'm not, and you're a purist and I'm not, and you don't smoke and drink and I do, and you know what I mean, all of these kind of things. And secondly, that I needed to look after the family. So it was just one of those moments in life where you take a right road or you take a left road, and I took the left, and I decided I must make my contribution through other ways. Okay,
and now with hindsight, as South Africans ask about leadership every day, to say, where are the new great leaders? How do you feel about the left turn that you took?
Well, I'm very comfortable with it because, I happen to belong to one of the oldest political formations on the continent, and if there's one thing you can say about the ANC is they don't need Dali. They're brimming with talent. They're brimming with people with brains and excellence and all kinds of talents that are a gift, really, to this country. And they're very, very dedicated, selfless people throughout the ranks of the movement. So I've never felt from that perspective that, oh gosh, they need you.
They could have done without you.
But I'm political as a person. And, so I follow events very closely, but I just decided that I shouldn't be a politician, at least not at this point in my life.
Okay, Adelaide Tambo is my guest as we put, actually not him in the spotlight, but more his parents in the spotlight. Ahead of the walk, the run that happens, the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Liberation Walk run that happens this weekend, the 6th of October at the Benoni Cedar Football Club. Just to give you some details, it starts, you have three choices, in fact, a 5, a 10 and a 21-kilometer race. Different starting times. Probably the best thing I can advise you to. I'm going to give you a website address. tamboliberationwalk.coza is where you need to go. tamboliberationwalk.coza. There's also an email, info@tamboliberationwalk.co.za. But if you wish to chat as well to Adelaide Tambo about his family, certainly do so. 0891 104 207. So let's then talk about your family from your perspective. So we know them as leaders, as freedom fighters, and that's how it stays. We don't know what they're like, behind closed doors at home. What were they like?
My mum and dad,
yeah,
very loving. He adored her, and she adored him. And the saddest thing, I suppose, is that she married a man, and then spent the majority of 30 years separated from him, with first telegrams and telegraphs, and then as technology moved on, faxes and things becoming the regular means of conversation, and friends coming backwards and forwards in and out of the country, and of course his regular trips to England. But then the house was always filled with people, as I was saying earlier. So they adored each other and were forever faithful to each other, and she had great respect for him and what he did, and was as political as him. He met her when she was already in the ANC. So it wasn't, my mother also had to make a choice, as did many women of the struggle, that there was still the realities of life. You still had to bring up a family, you still had to earn daily bread and struggle to keep a flat or a home and educate your children. And he said to her when they left the country, it'll be 5 years. And it turned out to be 31 or 30. So, I always rejoice in the love they had together. Excuse me. Surely, I'm on a radio interview.
And these things happen, by the way.
I always rejoice in the love they had together, but I also, have I suppose, a sadness in my heart that my mother did have a hard life, as did many of our people. And so that side of it is not joyous. She was a joyous person who brought energy and vivacity and joy to the lives of so many. And I wish that she had been able to fulfill her dream, which was just to retire in a free South Africa with her husband and take it easy.
And that sadly didn't happen, isn't it?
No.
What impact has their lives, or have their lives and their leadership roles played on you and your family, the siblings?
What effect?
Yeah.
Well, as you know, it took us out of the country. I left when I was 1 and came back when I was 31. So exile robs you of everything. It robs you of your home, the friends you would have had, the culture you would have had, the schools you would have had, the life. And it puts you in another place, whether it's Russia or America or England or Cuba or the Soviet Union. Exile is a very sort of culturally destructive thing, and so from that side, it wasn't good. From the other side, you get on with life, and you just live it. And so that's what we did. I mean, you make the best of the situation, and you're comforted by a movement in exile, and as I said earlier, all these uncles and aunts, and the fact that there are constant streams of people coming out of the country telling you about what's going on, and bringing messages from relatives and things. So it was one of those things. We managed to keep our spirits high, and they were always coming together, especially at my mother's house, and the exile community would gather at funerals and things, and that was one of the sad things when you see people pass on, and you buried them in London, and you knew that their only dream was to return home. So there was a lot of anguish, and I can't ever pretend that those were easy years for any of the exiles or our people inside the country. But that was the thing that we always knew also, that a lot of our people inside the country was worse.
Of course it was. Well, take your calls. I'll also read some of your SMSs, 34701. That'll cost you 2 rands to call into 0891 104 207. We're chatting to Adelaide Tambo about his parents and about the walk that comes up this weekend, as we put them, in fact, in the spotlight. I'm certainly going to ask you, and you can think about this. In fact, Dolly, are you going to be walking? But don't answer it right away. We'll get an answer after this.
Afternoon Talk on SAFM.
Okay, and we in fact are chatting to Adelaide Tambo, head of the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation walk race. So SFM, in partnership with the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation, invites you to the second annual Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Liberation Walk that happens on Saturday, the 6th of October. So 3 choices: the 5, the 10, or the 21-kilometer walk is what you can join as we honor the lives of our struggle heroes. Lots of entertainment for the kids and family as well, of course. And very important, all proceeds will go to the Ludeke Primary School to provide learning facilities. So that's very important. You need to know more. Check out the website, tamboliberationwalk.co.za. Join us as we walk to educate SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. Right, let's in fact get to the callers now. Before I do that, just tell me, so you're going to be walking, or you're running?
I'm walking, at my age. My days of running are well over, and I'm flat-footed. So my preference would have been to cycle, to tell you the truth. I cycle a lot. But no, since there's no cycling yet, we hope to have cycling maybe from next year. But since there's no cycling yet, I'm going to walk.
Okay, well, now we got that.
My father also used to love to walk, by the way.
Is that so?
It was his favourite form of activity, walking and a bit of golf.
All right, let's get to the callers. I want to just pick out those 0891 104 207. Right, I'm going to go first up to Mark, who's in Cape Town. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Yes.
Dolly, I've just taken an interest.
Hello, Mark.
Hi. I've just taken an interest over the years in what was the sort of the defining motivation or worldview or ideology of many of the freedom leaders like Nkosi Lutuli and so on.
Yes.
Now, we know your dad, his mission was to free the South African people.
Yeah.
But what would you say was his defining worldview or ideology that drove him?
Deep Christianity.
And that is just something that I've come across again and again, whether it's John Dubie and many of your early leaders.
Yes,
it was
yes.
their real Christian belief and biblical beliefs that defined who they were, and out of that came a sense of who they were and the freedoms that they should enjoy as equally made in God's image, along with everybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, he was actually going to become a priest, and, events took their hold, and so it never happened. But you're quite right. I mean, many of them, their whole ideology, life perspective was based upon religion and, social justice, and the fact that all are created equal under God.
Yeah. When I read Albert Lutuli's "Let My People Go,"
yes.
I'm a Christian, and it was just an opening of the eyes for me. It was somebody that intimately shared my own belief system.
Yeah.
But as I was growing up as a kid in that, I was totally separated from that type of influence, or even knowing that that such people existed, you know. And yet, once I read him, this was a man after my own heart, sort of thing. You know?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Mark, thanks for that call. Lovely
Thank you.
call. Edwin, I'll come into you in just a second. Let's just talk about that. I mean, because interesting, I had Ronnie Caswell's here the other day. I mean, he made the point that he's very much a-religious. So you had a person at the helm of the ANC who's driven very much by religion, by Christianity, and yet there were many people within the broader church, and maybe that's an inappropriate word to use, right? Who in fact were driven by the fact that they were not religious at all, but they certainly had social justice in them.
Yes, well, you know, the other day on my show, I asked Zwelinzima Vavi what is the difference between a Christian and a communist. Mm-hmm. And he quite rightly said, in the South African context, almost nothing, because they both seek the same thing. And even, as he says, many of his shop stewards who are communists in terms of their ideology are Christians or lay preachers as well. So, you know, we are a mixed bag, and the movement has always been that too. And I think that we were all united by one thing, which was that apartheid was against the principles of pretty much any ideology that was progressive.
Okay, I've also I'm going to encourage people whether they in fact are going to the walks. If you are going to walk or to run, besides Dali, who's clearly walking, we know that. You let me know too. Edwin and George, hi.
Hello, Ashraf.
Yes.
So sorry I didn't hear you properly on the other line. Look, hello?
Yes, Edwin, you're on the air. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go for it.
Oh, wonderful. Look, Dali, your family is an example. It's love and devotion and sacrifice and self-discipline.
Thank you.
And belief in solid moral, ethical and religious fundamentals have brought freedom to us. How dare we then go into a culture of dependency and debt, ceding our freedom, which was so hard won, to alien multinational bankers and corporations which have taken over in most of the Western world, where people have lost their moral values because of temptations of something for nothing getting people to the polls. Please, we must pull together. I would say it would be nice to have T-shirts for the kids to say, I love my God, I love my family, I love my country, and I insist on doing my best. The Constitution cannot exist if we're in debt, as we've seen in America. It's totally shredded. We must look after each other and earn and deserve each other's respect. This country's worth it, and we all are worth it if we can realize.
All right, Edwin, got that
Totally
one there.
agree.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much for
Edwin.
that one. Do you want to respond to him, Dolly?
Sorry?
Did I respond to Edwin?
I think he's absolutely right. I mean, I think globally you can see this decay taking place. And, you know, the unfortunate thing about the debt, which Edwin was talking about, is that poor people all over the world are having to pay for it. The cost of food, the cost of everything goes up, and their lives go from bad to even worse. And so it's an awful situation. I don't know how we're going to come out of it. And we've seen the effects of it here in South Africa. So I think, I never put words into my father's mouth, as I said to you earlier. He was a deep intellectual, and I'm not. But I think he would be aghast at what's going on,
now
around the world.
Well, by the way, someone is saying OR is the greatest leader the ANC in South Africa ever had. All the best to Dali and family. It comes from the KB. So we'll talk more about the family through Adelaide Tambo. We'll do that for the next 10 minutes or so. And just more detail on that race or walk as well, as we put, the Tambos, Oliver and Adelaide in the spotlight through Adelaide Tambo. 0891 104 207. Bekicha, I'll get to your call in a second.
Afternoon Talk on SAFM.
So, I'm Ashraf Garda, but very important, Adelaide Tambo is talking to me about Oliver and Adelaide Tambo, two names that are absolutely not synonymous with where we are as a country, but our history and where we intend to go in terms of being inspired indeed. But there's an Oliver and Adelaide Tambo race walk that happens at the weekend, and that's what we're inspiring you to do. So get there, because SAFM certainly broadcasting on that Saturday morning from the Cedars Park Football Club in Benoni, and we're doing that with a couple of shows. I think certainly Michelle Constance show definitely doing it. I think the In Tune one as well. So come and say hi as well to some of the presenters, but more importantly, be part of what should be, the ultimate comrades race, don't you think so? Bekicha in Cape Town, hi.
Marco,
Yes. Hi, Bikitsha.
yes, I just want to say a few things. One being that I think here in South Africa, we all love, appreciate, and really adore the family of, Mr. Tambo, especially the father. But, one question that I want to just pose to him is, knowing that originally, he comes from Pondoland, one of the beautiful areas in Eastern Cape, which unfortunately the whole Eastern Cape is an area which really is suffering, a spectrum of problems regarding to poverty, illiterate, and, the lack of focus into our culture. How much time does he devote into trying to, promote and trying to help into those problems, including promoting porno culture? Thank you.
Okay, got that. Johnny, respond to that?
Hi. Well, thank you for the question. In the Eastern Cape, really what we try to do is we have quite a lot of family there, and we work with the Adelaide Tambo and Alfred and Zoe municipalities and various other groups there. And so on an annual basis and during the year, there are quite a lot of legacy projects that we get involved with. The other side is really just talking to government to try and highlight, because as you can imagine, the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation has only been going for a year. And so we're still taking baby steps. But I set up the foundation precisely to do that kind of thing, because it's very difficult as an individual. I know that in years past, some government ministers, when they saw me, would actually turn and run the other way because they'd know I'd be coming to them with issues and things like this. And I actually went to the president and others and said, I'm setting up a foundation because I'm tired of holding up my hand and saying, what about Kantolo, what about OR, what about this, that, and the other. So we've set up the foundation now, and that's part of its mandate, is to look at ways in which we can use the influence of his name to better the life of the people in the areas that he touched.
There's an interesting question, which is, if you were given the chance, in fact, what would you choose to honor Awar? And of course, that question is to you, Dali.
How would I choose?
Yeah,
to honor
how
him?
would you choose? I mean, so it comes from Southern, was anonymous, not too sure where it is. But anyway, how would you choose to honor Awar Tambo?
I suppose it would have to be by making a dramatic change to the economic equilibrium of life in this country. I mean, I think he always had two things in mind. Freedom comes as a pair, which is economic and political. And so I think if one were to honor him, one would arrive at a situation where all in South Africa had economic dignity, activity, and strength. And that doesn't mean that we're all wealthy, but it means that we have very few people who are desolate and poor. So, I think we are honoring him every time we build a school, every time we turn on taps and electricity and things. But there's so much that needs to be done, and the deficit is huge. So, if I was to want to honor him, I suppose the ultimate honor to him and all of his and previous generations would be to bring economic liberation to the country.
And don't we need that? Indeed?
But it's economic liberation, and it's also to retain and to instill in our nation going forward the values that they stood for, values that mean so much to any society. That are the lifeblood of a society. So it's a combination of those. And, that's what the walk is about. It's about those values that they stood for.
Yeah, let's just talk about, not everybody, I mean, some people want to walk to keep fit and keep fresh and lose weight and all those type of things. But ultimately, what's the real goal here?
I think it's a celebration of our multicultural society. He said it's our responsibility to break down the barriers of division and create a country where there will be neither whites nor blacks, just South Africans, free and united in diversity. And that's the South Africa he wanted to see. That's the South Africa my mother wanted to see. And what we want to see on the walk is a multicultural mix of South Africans coming together to walk, to have fun, to share commonality, and to reinforce those values that they stood for, and to celebrate our multicultural